Hello, good afternoon everybody. Can everybody hear me? Welcome po sa live streaming at webinar na program ng Adventist Church Central Palawan. Amin po, humihingi po kami ng paumanhin na ang participants ay 100 lang. And praise God na meron na po tayong 100 participants sa Zoom. So pasensya po doon sa mga hindi nakapasok, pero you can reach us and you can view us book sa Adventist Church Puerto Princesa Central. Isa pong privilege. Pwede ko po bang makita ang mga participants? Sila ay naka-off ng mga video. Welcome po sa ating lahat. Ito ay very timely na webinar at ating maintindihan ang mga pangyayari sa ating paligid. So, ang iba po nandito sa Zoom ay very familiar from AUP, mga teachers at mga naging kaeskwela namin ni Doc Mañez noong 1990 sa AUP. Nais ko pong magpasalamat at pinaunlakan po tayo ng ating dalawang distinguished guests. Nais ko pong ipakilala si Dr. Jose Micabalo Oclarit. He is an eminent distinguished scientist and professor in the scientific community, both internationally and nationally. His specialty includes medical biochemistry, medical physiology, molecular biology, genetic engineering, natural products and medicinal chemistry, pharmacology, and pharmacognosy. Presently, he is a full-time professor of medicine and biochemistry at the Matthias H. Aznar Memorial College of Medicine of Southwestern University, Cebu City, teaching subjects in medical physiology and biochemistry. Lately, he is also an adjunct professor of biochemistry at the Cebu Doctors University College of Medicine in Cebu City. And on top of his teaching post, he also served on part-time basis as medical consultant and the Vice President of Research and Development of the Vital C Health Products Incorporated. Recently, he is designated as the Director for Research of the Don Matthias H. Aznar Memorial College of Medicine for the Southwestern University. And previously, he also served as professor at the Department of Physiology and Pharmacology of the College of Medicine, Mindanao State University, Mindanao, Philippines from 1986 to 2007. So he has been lecturing several times in Europe. He is an active lifetime member in several scientific organizations, permanent member of the National Research Council of the Philippines, the premium research body of the Philippines, the American Society of Microbiology, Philippine Society of Microbiology, Federation of Association of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, affiliated that of the International Union of Biochemistry, and the Outstanding Scientist Association of the Philippines. Welcome po, Dr. Oclarit. Nais ko pong ipakilala din ang next na ating resource speaker is Dr. Johann T. Mañez. Studied BS Biology at the Adventist of the Philippines. He was the former lifestyle medicine specialist at Adventist University of the Philippines, a former head doctor at My Pocket Doctor, former professor at AUP College of Medicine. He is the executive director and founder of Lifestyle College of Lifestyle Medicine and executive director of Asian Lifestyle Medicine Council. Welcome po, Dr. Johann T. Mañez. Isa pong privilege na makasama kayo ngayong hapon and Dr. Oclarit. And so I'm gonna pass on the time to Dr. Johann.
Hello, Aticha. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be part of your program this afternoon. I'll start by sharing my screen here. Can everyone see my screen? I just want to make sure. Okay, silence is yes.
Clear.
Clear, okay, very good. I just want.
For me.
All right, so the reason why I entitled this talk "A Critical Thinker's Approach" is because a lot of us have been hearing lots of news of different things about COVID-19, about vaccines, about different types of treatment. So I thought maybe it would be good to approach this from a critical thinker's point of view. And just in case we do not know what critical thinking means, there are several steps that we can do to become a critical thinker. So let me just run through this very quickly. This is not the gist of my topic. I want to really dive into the prevention and treatment of COVID-19. So first of all, we have to identify the problem, be as precise as possible, okay? So if we have an issue with COVID-19, then we ask the question, what is COVID-19? How can we solve the problem of COVID-19? There are different topics that we can identify and different problems that we can identify through critical thinking. Then we gather data. Gathering data for and against certain issues like vaccines, for example, that is a hot issue today. We have to gather data for and against and compare them. Number 3 is analyze, evaluate the data. Okay, identify assumptions. Napaka-importante rin po niyan. Are the sources unbiased? Meron bang conflicts of interest dun sa mga sources natin? Okay, yung mga studies na ginagawa, ito sponsored by yung mga tao na may sariling mga at saka meron po silang pinupush na agenda. So of course we have to establish significance, no? Ano yung piece of information na mas importante? Gamit nila doon sa mga studies, yung mga opinions and arguments ba relevant ba dun sa problem na sinosolve natin? So these are things that we have to do and have to ask and have to use to be able to make a decision, which is number 6. Finally, we come to a decision, a conclusion. And of course, we weigh the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses, the limitations of all the possible options po. Gagawin po natin yan. And after we make that conclusion, then we present. Then tayo, nasa gathering data pa lang tayo, and then we start presenting it to people. They do not see the big picture. Marami pong magiging confused. At minsan, hindi lang minsan, but most of the time, mali po yung naging decision na ginagawa ng mga tao. And we go to the text, 1 Thessalonians 5:19 and 22. This was a time when Paul went to Berea to talk about Jesus fulfilling the Old Testament po. And yung mga tao na noon, nung present ni Paul yung information, he was not there to become arrogant. Hindi siya pumunta sa mga tao ng Berea para magyabang na alam niya yung ginagawa niya, alam niya yung sinasabi niya. Pumunta siya doon para pangaralan. The people accepted. Okay, the people accepted the information that they got from Paul. Scripture. Kaya po dito sa 1 Thessalonians 5:19 to 22, it says, prove all, start from verse 19, quench not the spirit, despise not prophesying, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil. And I like the Message translation version of it, which says, the Spirit. Wag daw po natin pigilan ang Holy Spirit. Don't stifle those who have a word from the Master. On the other hand, don't be gullible. Wag din po tayong madaling maloko, madaling madala sa mga sabi na dito. Everything out according to the Message version, and keep only what's good, throw out anything. So when it comes to our session this afternoon, there's several problems and questions that I want answered. And I hope that by discussing, I will be able to answer this question. Give me 1 second. I have to turn off my phone. Hold on. Okay, pasensya na po. That was actually my alarm for this afternoon's program. Hindi ko pala na off. So the questions that I want answered is the deadly as they say it is, or not to vaccinate? That is a question that we want answered. And number 3, are there other safer solutions? So throughout this presentation, I want us to consider the different things mentioned, the different things that are going to be presented, and then I want you to make your own conclusions po and make your own decisions upon the matter. I don't want other. I want to be a presenter presenting all sides, and at the same time, after the talk po, meron po tayong expert to tell us of his findings, his knowledge about the conditions, about the topics that we will be discussing this afternoon. One controversial issue here that I want to address is that sinasabi po ng ating Adventist Review, which is one of the official publications of the Adventist Church, December 18, 2020, they released this article saying that entitled COVID-19 Vaccines Addressing Concerns, Offering Counsel. Many points in the article that show us why we should take vaccinations po. And one of the things that they mentioned as a reason to take vaccination was this. And I'd like to just highlight it here. We advocate all these practices to maintain a healthy immune system. And in the pandemic, even more is needed. Ellen White was not only an inspired conduit of health information much ahead of her time, but she modeled practical prevention in the face of lethal disease in her era, smallpox, and took the immunization herself and did those, and as did those close to her. Today, smallpox has been globally eradicated. So ginagamit po nila na daw po siya, and ito po ay naging controversy sa iba't ibang circles ng Adventist Church. So let's dig deeper, just a little bit deeper into this. I don't want to spend too much time here because there's such a lot of things that we have to discuss for this afternoon. But I want to highlight the source, okay? The source na pinanggalingan po nitong nitong conclusion na si Ellen White mismo daw ay nagpa-vaccine. Ito po yung kanilang source. So let's go to that source. This is a letter signed by D.E. Robinson, one of Ellen White's secretaries. Ang sabi po ni D.E. Robinson in this letter, you ask for definite and concise information regarding what Sister White wrote about vaccination and serum. This question can be answered very briefly. For so far as we have any record, she did not refer to them in any of her writings, sabi ni D.E. Robinson. Tapos, i-continue po niya yung kanyang letter at sinabi po niya dito, you'll be interested to know, however, that at a time when there was an epidemic of smallpox in the vicinity, she herself was vaccinated, sabi po niya, and urged her helpers, those connected with her, to be vaccinated. Taking this step, Sister White recognized the fact that it has been proven that vaccination either renders one immune from smallpox or greatly lightens its effects. If one does come down with it, she also recognized the danger of their exposing others if they fail to take this precaution. So, hindi po ako nakontento dyan. Okay? Pinuntahan ko mismo po yung source nung letter na yon, and we can find it here in ellenwhite.org, questions-and-answers/474 sa ano po natin sa browser. I-type po ninyo yan at lalabas po ito. At ito po yung letter, okay, yung circle dito, yung letter ni D.E. Robinson kay Clarence Hawker, who was asking about Ellen White's view on vaccination. And this was in 1931. Patay na po si Ellen G. White nito for 16 years when this letter was written by D.E. Robinson. Ito po yung original letter niya. You need to go through that. You can just look it up on the internet. And there are things that we have to understand na ito pong si D.E. Robinson, when he wrote this was 16 years after Ellen G. White's death. Pero po, meron rin po siyang letter na sinulat during the time that Ellen G. White was still alive, okay? And before we go to that, I want to show you a little bit about how vaccines were created during the time of Ellen G. White. There was also another pandemic, another problem, was going on, which was the diphtheria problem. And this is how scientists grew diphtheria antitoxin. So, ini-inject po nila yung toxin into a horse. At yung horse po, syempre, mag-create siya ng antibodies against the toxin. And yung blood ng horse, kukunin po ng mga scientists at isa-separate po nila yung serum, okay? Yung serum ng blood ng horse at yung serum po na yun, which contains antitoxin, yun po ang ini-inject sa mga tao. So this alone, this process alone, kung isipin po yun, it really gives us question. Di ba po may inaalaala tayo ng mga sayings po at saka mga biblical principles about the blood of animals being even eaten by human beings. Ano po? And these things as to whether this procedure is actually wise or not. Ang sabi po ni Ellen G. White, again, in 1909, sick there, you want to know how to use the common methods, the simple remedies of water. It is a simple power. Although my husband and I were not physicians, sabi po ni Ellen G. White, yet we could go around when the doctor's children were cut down. Yung mismong mga anak ng doktor nagkakasakit. Okay? 4 and 5 in the families of physicians. We never lost a case. That is in diphtheria. And we used only simple treatments. In doing this, we gained the confidence of physicians. When persons would go to the physicians for help, ano sasabihin po ni ng mga physicians sa kanila? If anybody can help you, it is up there at Elder White's. And he and his wife go around and help people. I don't know how they do it. It may be that God will send you to some such homes where help is needed for the sick. Sabi po ni Ellen G. White, you can melt your way into the hearts of the worst souls and they be converted. Ano ba po ang purpose natin ng health message? But to help people be converted and share the gospel, the message of salvation. That is the point of Ellen G. White's health ministry. So I'd like you now to go back. I'd like us to go back to some of these sources of the letters by D.E. Robinson. And there's a letter that he wrote during the time na, okay? Just to go through it very quickly, sabi po niya dito, ina-answer naman po niya dito yung question ni A.C. Anderson naman. So for A.C. Anderson, sabi po niya, dear brother, your letter addressed to Mrs. E.G. White came to hand several weeks ago. I mentioned the matter to her one day, but was unable to get anything definite. Kakapagtaka. Nothing definite, okay? And this was while Ellen G. White was alive. So pinuntahan ni D.E. Robinson si Ellen G. White at walang nasabi si Ellen G. White na definite about vaccination. Sister White's writings contain the broad principles that should guide us in all our work. When it comes to details, however, it is necessary for us to study these and to come to our own conclusion. Owing to our finite limitations, we do not always see alike in some of these matters. When I was young, so inano na po niya, in example na po niya, nung bata daw siya, he had quite a serious time when he was vaccinated. So nagka-problema. This led me to feel that vaccination was wrong. Pero sabi niya, on the other hand, I felt differently about it when I heard about the death in India of my uncle, Elder D.A. Robinson, who had refused to be vaccinated. Others who had been vaccinated were very closely associated with him, and they either escaped the disease entirely or had it in a very mild form. Before he died, he stated that if he had to do it over again, he would certainly be vaccinated. Ito po ang sinasabi ni D.E. Robinson at ginagawa po niyang testimony yung kanyang uncle na namatay dahil hindi daw na-vaccinate. Want to give a very decided opinion. So wala rin siya masyadong decided na opinion during that time. However, the principle underlying the administration of antitoxins seems to be based upon scientific common sense. Of course, it may be carried to extremes. So we certainly should not trust to any of these be good in themselves to the exclusion of such simple treatment. Ina-emphasize pa rin po niya ang simple treatment as outlined in the instruction given to us as a people. Of course, you will have to understand that this is my own personal statement, own opinion lang daw po niya. No way responsible. Wala pong sinasabi tungkol sa vaccinations. And LNG after D.E. Robinson wrote this. Ellen G. White's attitude toward vaccination, yung author po nito ay anak mismo ni Ellen G. White. And yung anak po mismo ni Ellen G. White ay, ang sinulatan po niya at this point was L.C. Kellogg. So si L.C. Kellogg po ang sinulatan ni W.C. White, and this is what W.C. White had to say. Dear Brother Kellogg, I hold in my hand your letter of asking if I can tell you what the attitude was of Mrs. E.G. White toward vaccination. Sabi po ng anak ni Ellen G. White, she regarded it as a perplexing question. White, sagutin itong question na to. I do not remember her ever saying or writing instruction regarding vaccination. In our earlier days, spoke of it as something dangerous and related my own experience. So experience mismo W.C. White when he was a kid. She said that as a child, I was perfectly healthy, was vaccinated, and by that, my health was much impaired. So, sabi po ni W.C. White, he continued saying that mother listened attentively to the argument that Dr. L.C. Kellogg, but during that time must improve the vaccination. And when in our travels, we were brought to a large city where smallpox was raging, and the matter was discussed as to whether or not I and my associate should be vaccinated, she offered no objection. And in view of the argument of physicians that it was not only for our own safety, but for the safety of others, I and my associates were vaccinated. Ellen G. White sa binakunahan. Nag-agree si Ellen G. White kasi may mga physicians doon na kino-convince siya na kailangan magpa-vaccine at makaprotect sa kanila yung vaccination, but never in the letter did W.C. White say that E.G. White was vaccinated. Ito po yung reference na time na sinasabi ni D.E. Robinson na nagpa-vaccinate daw si Ellen G. White. And he was not even in this scenario. He wasn't even with these people during the time na si Ellen G. White ay nandoon po sa city na yon na maraming may smallpox. So, binase po ng ating Adventist review ang lahat pong sinabi nila about Ellen G. White by one letter that was more of a hearsay letter from the secretary of Ellen G. White 16 years after Ellen G. White died. So kung sasabihin po natin may evidence tayo na si Ellen G. White ay nagpabakuna, very weak po yung evidence po na yan. And this is just what I came about by that were being the source or yung pinaka reason kung bakit nila kinunclude na yun nga po nagpabakuna daw si Ellen G. White. Anyways, we know that smallpox is a deadly disease. Madami po talaga namatay sa smallpox. It's not a good condition. We're thankful, sige po, we're thankful that because of vaccinations, smallpox was eradicated now, okay? But we know that smallpox also doesn't have an animal reservoir. So maybe it's just because of herd immunity that smallpox was eradicated. Because our own immune systems kicked in, kaya na-eradicate po ang smallpox. And since wala po tayong animal reservoir ng smallpox, then hindi po nagtuloy ang smallpox sa ating population. And even during the time of smallpox vaccination, napakadami napansin kasi po nila there was a group of milkmaids na exposed sila sa cows, and hindi po sila nagka-smallpox. Protected sila sa smallpox. So they said, maybe if we take the smallpox virus, okay, and inoculate it on cows, tapos yung pus na produce ng cows ay gagamitin natin para yun ang i-inject sa mga tao, baka maging vaccinated or immunized sila. Okay, this was a theory back then. And sure, people were getting better because of the immunization, but a lot of people were also getting problems because of the immunization. So ito po yung 9 days after inoculation, yan po ang dapat makita, but not always, Ito po ay 10 days after inoculation, ito pong bata na to, makikita po nyo very kung may kulay po ito, very red po yan. And you see the sores on his face, nahawakan po niya yung kanyang sugat, yung kanyang vaccination na ipahid sa mukha. So bacterial infection infected his face, and ang tawag po dyan sa kanila nung time na yun ay scrofula. Okay? So this is the vaccine ulcer from a smallpox vaccine. This is face. Namatay po pox. So it is real. The horrors of vaccination during the time of smallpox, during the time of Ellen G. White was real. And this is why you will later see, I will show you some of the documents from our own Adventist institutions kung bakit hindi po nila gusto yung smallpox vaccine. So CDC today, so ito po ang smallpox vaccination. 2 needles, i-inject sa'yo, yung pus na galing sa i-inject, and this is what happens. It causes irritation, nagkakasugat, and eventually it heals. So yan po ang normal dapat na nangyayari, or yan ang ideal, I should say, na nangyayari, but it's not always that way. Sometimes this is what happens, okay? We get infection from the vaccine itself, get scrofula, okay? And very similar po dun sa drawing na nakita po niyo in the old book, okay, na horrors of vaccination. Similar, very similar, okay, ang nangyayari po sa mga tao na i-vaccinate ng smallpox. But this is not the concern here. This is not the issue here. Isa pong tao, si Dr. Jonathan Hutchinson, who was an English doctor, who supported vaccination and hated anti-vaxxers. During his time, he called the anti-vaxxers ignorant. And the thing is, the anti-vaxxers during that time were saying that arm-to-arm vaccination spread syphilis. Meron po kasing ginawa sila na instead of getting the pus from the cows, what they would do is get the pus from the arm of the person na vaccinated. At yung mismong pus na yun from the arm, ang ginagamit para i-vaccinate yung ibang tao. Arm-to-arm vaccination. And these anti-vaxxers were saying, look, stop it. By doing this, you're spreading syphilis. Tinatawanan sila nito ni Jonathan Hutchinson. But eventually, the British Parliament investigated this and found that the anti-vaxxers were actually correct, that syphilis was being transmitted through the arm-to-arm vaccinations that they were doing. And alam po natin ang syphilis is a sexually transmitted disease. It can also be transmitted from blood and fluids of different fluids from the body of one person to another. And definitely, it was common for syphilis to spread. So, sabi po ni Dr. Jonathan Hutchinson, after finding out the conclusion of the investigation of the British Parliament, sabi niya, we cannot ask that vaccination may be made compulsory now unless we have done everything in our power to make it safe. So siya mismo inadmit na niya na okay, hindi na natin pwedeng gawing compulsory ang vaccination kasi hindi natin alam kung talagang safe siya. There is no doubt that the danger of transmitting syphilis is a real and very important one. It can be guarded against only by giving the fullest information regarding it to all the members of the profession and by attracting their attention to it in the most forcible manner. I should deem myself culpable in a high degree if I failed in my duty in this respect. So yan mismo si Dr. Jonathan Hutchinson. So siya na ay mismo nag-agree na okay, tama. Nakaka-cause pala ng syphilis itong arm-to-arm vaccination. But anyways, during the time of our pioneers, itong Health Reformer na magazine na pinublish po nila, this was the opinion of our leaders and pioneers during that time. We do not deal in the article regarding vaccines. We neither vaccinate children nor furnish the virus for others to do so. We are as much opposed to viruses and vaccines as we are to drugs and medicines. If people must be sick, they had better have it the natural way. Another article about vaccination, as we are opposed to curing primary disease by producing drug diseases, so we cannot see the propriety of curing or preventing contagious or infectious diseases by inoculating the system with venoms and viruses. We have known the worst forms of scrofula, yung sa face nga po, and the most loathsome conditions of venereal disease, yan na po yung syphilis na sinasabi po natin, traceable directly to vaccination. But this was about the smallpox vaccine. So essentially during that time, pagdating sa smallpox vaccine, ang atin pong stand as church and as leaders of the church po, was generally not to take vaccines. Natural remedies pa rin po ang gusto po natin. So sabi po ni Ellen G. White, the endless variety of medicines in the market, the numerous advertisements of new drugs and mixtures, all of which, as they say, do wonderful cures, kill hundreds where they benefit one. Those who are sick are not patient. They will take the various medicines, some of which are very powerful, although they know nothing of the nature of the mixtures. Do we know everything about vaccines, especially the COVID vaccines? These are new vaccines that are out there. We don't know even if they should be called vaccines, and I'm pretty sure that Dr. Oclarit will expound on some of those issues. All the medicines, according to Ellen G. White, they only make their recovery more hopeless. Yet they keep dosing and continue to grow weaker until they die. Some will have medicine at all events. And then she says, emphasis mine, then let them take these harmful mixtures and the various deadly poisons upon their own responsibility. God's servants should not administer medicines which they know will leave behind injurious effects upon the system, even if they do relieve present suffering. All right, let's go to the present situation. A few months ago, April 9, 2021, ang percent po ng active na cases dito sa Philippines ay 21.2%. This is COVID. Just 2 months ago, June 25. So from April to June, 4% na lang po yung active cases. Pababa na ang trend ng COVID sa ating bansa, which is a good thing. And if we average all the deaths due to COVID, okay, since January 22, 33 people die a day on average due to COVID-19. That's still a lot of people, I know, but compare it to the different deaths of people from other conditions. This is nothing. Ano po? There's so many people dying from other conditions. Actually, I checked recently po sa COVID tracker ng DOH. Na wala na po itong 4% na to, hindi ko na alam bakit tinanggal nila. Okay? Hindi na sinasabi kung ilan ang percent ng active cases. For some reason, they took it away. Maybe it's so low na hindi na masyadong nagka-cause ng sensation. Kaya ganon, okay? Approximately, ito yung problema ngayon. DOH says, wala na halos rini-report na TB cases, puro COVID na lang ni-report. Okay? Approximately 74 Filipinos die of TB every single day. Bakit hindi natin narinig sa news? Nakakahawa rin po ang TB. Kung mas maraming namamatay dahil sa TB, bakit hindi po ito ang narinig natin sa news at puro COVID pa rin po ang narinig natin? Heart disease. More people have die of heart disease in our country than of COVID. And yet we do not hear anything about heart disease, which is the #1 killer in the nation. I'd also like to show and point out that in the early data that came from Italy, they noticed that lahat po ng namatay sa COVID-19 ay merong ibang kondisyon. 48.5% died with 3 or more illnesses, okay? Yung iba po, 25.6%, 2 other illnesses apart from COVID, 25.1%, 1 other illness apart from COVID. At yung namatay lang purely from COVID is only 0.8%. Napakaliit po ng mga percent ng tao na wala pong comorbids na namamatay sa COVID-19. So if you're healthy, your chance of recovering completely from COVID-19 is very, very high. And this is what we have to emphasize. Kailangan pong malaman ng tao that, look, COVID-19 is not as deadly as we thought it was. So people who die from COVID, mostly elderly patients, elderly people. My other chronic conditions, alam na po natin yan. If you have heart disease, you have a 51.2% chance of dying from COVID-19 if you contract the virus. So we have similar findings. Ito po from the US, okay, COVID-19 primary, not only cause of 94% of death. So kapag meron kang ibang condition, yun po ang mas matinding risk for dying from COVID. Ito pa, isa pa. New CDC report shows 94% of COVID-19 deaths in US had contributing conditions. 6% lang po ang namamatay sa pure COVID alone. 6% lang po. And so this is something that we have to understand. Sabi po sa Mayo Clinic, August 21, 2020, COVID-19's who's at higher risk of serious symptoms, people with obesity, diabetes, both reduce the efficiency of a person's immune system. And that is why we need to focus on what the contributing factors are. Heart disease, diabetes, respiratory issues, yan po ang kailangan po natin tutukan ngayon kasi yan ang, pag meron kang ganitong mga kondisyon, most probably pag magkaroon ka ng COVID-19, high risk ka to die from the condition. So COVID-19, people who live after COVID-19 infection, COVID is not as deadly as you think. Ito pong number na to, hindi ito latest, 99.7 po yata ang latest, of people who contract the virus or are positive in tests completely recover. That's a huge amount of people recovering from this COVID-19 problem. Many healthy people do not even develop symptoms of infection, even when the tests show that they have the virus. So anong difference po niyan sa mga tao na binabakunahan? Sabi nila, pag vaccinated daw, less ang symptoms, less ang degree ng symptoms on COVID-19. And yet in the normal population, even without vaccines, people actually have very little symptoms, okay? More people die of chronic diseases pa rin po every day than of COVID-19. Chances of survival go up as you eat healthy, exercise, stress less, and sleep well. And this we're going to go into later on. Let me bring you to the blue zones. Are you familiar with the blue zones? These are areas in the world where people live an extraordinary length of time, 100 years and over. Marami pong malaking percent ng population sa places po na to ay mahabang buhay. At even with the COVID-19 pandemic, sila rin po ay hindi rin po masyado naapektuhan ng COVID. Tingnan po natin ang sinasabi po dito sa isang article from Forbes. Italy has the third highest number of coronavirus infections after the US and Spain, but its ancient isolated island of Sardinia, one of the world's 5 blue zones, hasn't been devastated by the pandemic. It appears that some of the reasons blue zone Sardinians are able to live vitally into their 80s, 90s, and 100s may be helping them stave off COVID-19 and sustaining them during their country's lockdowns. Alam po niyo ang mga blue zones? Ito po yun, Okinawa, Icaria, Sardinia, Nicoya, but one interesting blue zone is Loma Linda, California. Kasi po, dito sa Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and Okinawa, Japan, these are, meron po silang race, okay? We're considering the genes of the race. Sila ba ay magaganda ang genes, kaya po ganon? But here in Loma Linda, this is a group of people with different ethnicities. It's not just one ethnic group. These are different ethnicities in one group living together, and we know that these are the Seventh-day Adventists. So, bakit po ganon? Itong mga blue zones na to, ang mga tao ay hindi masyado naapektuhan ng virus, nitong ating COVID virus. And we know that in the blue zones, like in Loma Linda, these blue zones can teach us about living longer. We understand that God gave us a robust immune system. Ano po? We have 3 levels of natural protection against invaders of our system. Meron po tayong level 1, yung barrier po natin, yung skin, cilia. It helps us keep the viruses at bay, hindi po pasok sa loob ng katawan natin. We have level 2, innate level natin po natin na immunity natin. Cells and chemicals such as macrophages, okay, they stop invaders from spreading. And of course, when they eventually are able to get in our body, we have the adaptive immunity, which are our blood producing antibodies against a specific virus. So, and this is, by the way, what the vaccinations are supposed to stimulate is our adaptive level of immunity. But let's see how not to die of COVID-19, okay? Ito po, based po sa lumalabas sa studies ngayon, people who do not die from COVID-19 eat plenty of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and beans. They exercise daily. They hydrate, they drink lots of water. They have high amounts of vitamin D from sunlight exposure. They avoid harmful substances like alcohol and tobacco. They oxygenate with fresh outdoor air, sleep 8 hours a night, stress less, enjoy nature, have a positive outlook. Isn't this familiar? These are things that we as Adventists already know of. So why are we not following these I should say healthy lifestyle behaviors, practices, and why are we not telling the world about this for this condition? Alam po niyo, lahat ng vaccinations ngayon, especially the COVID vaccines, specifically, are under trial. So these are vaccine trials. Ano po? So kung kayo po ay nagpabakuna na ngayon, then I thank you because you are contributing to science. Kayo po ay mga matatapang na tao na hindi natin alam pa kung anong mangyayari kapag kayo nabakunahan ay nagpabakuna na kayo. You have subjected your bodies as a test subject for these big pharmaceutical companies. And sinasabi mismo po ng mga nagbibigay ng vaccine na ito po ay vaccine trial, emergency use authorization lang po. And the duration of protection against COVID-19 is currently unknown. This is not a live virus, cannot cause infection to get COVID-19. So ito po ay vaccine trial, still being studied. These are clinical trials. So you cannot say that the vaccines are safe or the vaccines are effective unless these trials are finished and we have solid studies showing that these are actually safe and effective. In fact, when it comes to safety, when you look at the vaccine adverse event reporting system in the United States, the CDC, okay? Pag tinignan po natin yan, ang mga reports, sana may ganito tayo sa Philippines, kasi ang dami ko pong mga kaibigan na namatay at nagkaroon ng vaccine reaction na hindi nare-report ng maayos. At pag re-report, sasabihin lang ng mga tao doon sa taas, ay ano lang yan, coincidental lang yan. And yet, so many people are actually reacting to these vaccines. Buti na lang sa US po, merong ganong klase. Right now, 13,911 people have died or are being related to the vaccine inoculation. So that is not a small number. Alam po ninyo, may mga vaccines na 53 pa lang ang namamatay, pinupull out na yung vaccines sa market kasi alam nilang, okay, bakit may namamatay sa mga vaccines na to? 13,911 deaths related to vaccines, 18,000 people permanently disabled dahil po sa vaccines, and other reports. Okay, we have now 650,000 reports of different reactions, adverse reactions to these vaccines, to the point that scientists around the world are calling for immediate stop of all COVID-19 vaccinations. This is not me saying it. These are headlines this is from Malaysia, for example. And let's take the present day countries that have been almost fully vaccinated, such as Israel. We find out that these vaccines are failing us. Mga kapatid, Israel, once the model for beating COVID, faces new surge of infections according to the New York Times. One of the most vaccinated societies in Israel now has one of the highest infection rates in the world, raising questions about vaccines' efficacy. COVID, again, from Jerusalem Post naman, Israel surpasses 500 serious patients. As of Sunday, Israel had 525 patients in serious condition. Okay, of those, 404 are over 60, with 277 of them fully vaccinated. And when we look at the numbers, hospitalizations po sa Israel, this is August 8, 2021, 53% ng mga hospitalized ay vaccinated compared to non-vaccinated people. And this is my own experience. Dito po sa ating hospital sa AMCM, mga COVID patients ngayon, nandyan naka-admit ngayon, fully vaccinated. The vaccines are failing us, brothers and sisters. Half of COVID hospital cases fully vaccinated, according to the Times magazine. Almost half of COVID-19 patients admitted to hospital so far this week have been fully vaccinated, the HSC Director General has said. And then another article of the New York Times, Israel, once a model for beating COVID, faces new surge of infections, and the vaccination cycle were supposed to solve everything, he said. We now understand that vaccines are not enough. And so we come down to decision making. What does our church say? So when it comes to the decision to be immunized, to be vaccinated, ang sabi po ng ating church, the decision to be immunized or not is the choice of each individual and should be taken in consultation with one's healthcare provider. Personal research on the subject is important. We ultimately rely on following biblical health practices in the spirit of prophecy and following God's leading in our lives, which will bring us peace and assurance in our decision making. So, although ini-encourage po ng ating church na magpa-vaccinate, ang final say po niyan ay ikaw. To vaccinate or to not to vaccinate, you have that decision to make. Your body, it is your choice. And remember, today po, I find leaders, I find pastors forcing their brethren to be vaccinated. That is completely wrong. Why are we forcing them to be vaccinated? Kung ayaw po nila, we cannot force. We have to have freedom of choice in our church. Remember what 2 Corinthians 3:17 says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. If we are starting to force our own brethren to be vaccinated for whatever reason, okay, this is not liberty. This is not freedom, and the Spirit of the Lord is not in that act, okay? Are there other options? Well, this is one question I had to ask. Are there other options apart from vaccinations to keep us healthy? Absolutely. Number one, a healthy lifestyle. We've already mentioned that. New start, right? But there are also other medications that work, and we know that these medications are very powerful. I am a practicing frontliner, lifestyle medicine physician. I have treated almost 300 patients in my practice. All of them, these are COVID patients we're talking about. All of them with the protocols that I have used, including ivermectin, have helped them 100%. I am thankful to God for this. For now, wala pa po namamatay na COVID patients. Some of them have been hospitalized at dun pa lang binigay yung COVID, yung ating protocol with including ivermectin. Pati yung mga na-hospitalized po na nabigyan, nag-recover completely, okay? And this is why I use this for my patients. It is very safe. Dr. Satoshi Omura, a microbiologist, co-discovered ivermectin. And this was almost 40 years ago, okay? And Merck, who was the producer of ivermectin initially, even they said that this intervention, this medication is extremely safe. It is even more safe than paracetamol. So if you're taking paracetamol, why are you afraid of taking ivermectin for prevention and treatment of COVID-19, brothers and sisters? Okay? So ito po yung Merck statement. Nakakatuwa because they are now sinisiraan na mismo ng Merck ang sarili nilang ivermectin. You know why? Because they're producing a very similar drug. Yung ivermectin kasi wala na silang patent rights dyan. Nag-expire na. So kahit sino ang pwede nang magbenta at gumawa ng ivermectin. So hindi nila sila kikita sa ivermectin. Ngayon gumagawa sila ng bagong drug. But what is amusing to me is that the same drug that they are now saying that is effective against COVID-19 is actually ivermectin in disguise. So same mechanism pa rin po ang ginagamit nila. So same mechanism that is in ivermectin is now in this new drug that they're producing at yun daw ang dapat, hindi daw yung ivermectin, which is kind of funny for me because they're just repackaging it, so to speak. Even doctors in the Philippines. This is an article in the Manila Times by Dr. Lalay Ramos Jimenez, a plea on ivermectin for COVID-19 because it works. Countries around the world, bumabagsak po ang COVID cases nila because of the use of ivermectin, widespread use of ivermectin. Now, a recent Manila Bulletin warning was given by the Philippine Medical Association against prescribing ivermectin. This became a hot issue recently, at nakarating sa Senate. At yung ibang mga senators na umiinom ng ivermectin nagalit, sabi nila, napakaraming gamot pagkain na ginagamit ng mga tao na di dumadaan sa FDA. Bakit all of a sudden Vicente Soto said that if you want to take ivermectin, let them take ivermectin. Okay? Baka naman ayaw lang nila, pero sa ibang bansa, bakit ito kalat na ginagamit? Baka di kailangan ng vaccine. So these are the words of some of our leaders of today in the Philippines. So eventually po, dahil sa issue na to, ivermectin was allowed. So ivermectin po, actually ang ivermectin po has already been FDA approved even before. Hindi lang for COVID. So kaya ginagamit na po natin ngayon ito off-label para sa mga pasyente po natin, and it works. It's available in Mercury, pharmacy, medyo hindi ko kilalang yung drugstore na yan. But anyways, it is available. All you need is a doctor's prescription. I am a member of several international organizations promoting ivermectin as a safe medicine against COVID-19. Okay, Bird Group is a British organization. FLCCC is an international organization, and yung mga proven safe for many of our patients around the world. So, brothers and sisters, remember that 71% of all deaths today are due to non-communicable diseases. And non-communicable diseases are now reversible. Ang sabi po ng mga experts, nutrition is the most important single environmental factor affecting health. Ito po ang kailangan ginagawa po ng church natin. We now have medical enlightenment. Ayon po sa past president ng American College of Lifestyle Medicine is both the newest thing in medicine, perhaps the oldest. That's it. Hippocrates advised, we have found a way back to the future, and with good reason. Because of lifestyle medicine, we can now reverse type 2 diabetes. Because of lifestyle medicine, we can now reverse heart disease. Because of lifestyle medicine, we can now prevent, control, and cure different types of diseases, not only chronic disease, non-communicable diseases. Today, we have studies on COVID showing that plant-based diets have 73% lower odds of people who eat plant-based diets have 73% lower odds of moderate to severe COVID compared with participants who followed a low-carb, high-protein, or yung mga tinatawag nilang ketogenic diets. Ito po ang solusyon, mga kapatid. Plant-based whole foods. This is what we should be eating on a daily basis. Fruits, grains, beans, vegetables. This was the new 4 food groups in 1991. Ginawa po nilang power plate yan noong 2011. We are herbivorous animals by design. Ginawa po tayo ng Panginoon para kumain ng mga gulay, prutas, nuts, and grains. Our teeth are flat like herbivores. Ano po ang ngipin ninyo? Mas parang tigre na to or yung mas parang kabayo? Wag lang yung nguso. Wag lang yung nguso ng kabayo. Flat, katulad slide from side to side, because we are herbivorous animals. We have to crush, we have to grind the fiber from the food that we eat. Our stomach acid is comparable to that of herbivorous animals. Sino na po sa inyo dito ang kumain ng napakadaming karne na empacho? Dahil po yan, sa stomach acid po natin, hindi kayang i-digest ang masyadong maraming karne. Our alam po niyo kapag nabubulok ang isang ang kapiraso ng bangkay ng hayop, nagpo-produce po yan ng kung ano-anong mga carcinogenic na mga compounds. And nakita naman po ninyo, pag yung may patay na hayop, for example, aso na nasagasaan at nandiyan sa tabi ng daan, just after a few hours, mabaho na, nag-aagnas na yung bangkay na yon. Remember, when we eat meat, only 12 to 15% of the meat we eat does not get digested. And it enters our intestinal tract. At dahil mahaba ang intestinal tract natin, inaalaw po natin na mabulok yung karne. And then we wonder why so many people who eat meat develop different types of cancer. It is not food for humans, okay? Emergency food lang. Walang gulay kasi sinira ng flood. Saka lang pinayagan ng Panginoon na, okay, emergency food. But every day is not an emergency for us. We should eat food that was prescribed to us from the Garden of Eden. Sabi po ni Dr. Hans Deal, health is not everything, but without it, everything is nothing. Take care of your health, and God will help take care of you. We've known these principles, the New Start principles, from the very early days of our Adventist journey. Ano po, pag ginising kita ngayong hating gabi, sabihin ko, ano ang New Start? Kaya po niyang memorizein. Today, the diseases that are happening is because we are not following these principles. Yes, disease is as old as the devil, but praise the Lord because healing is as ancient as God. And God said in Exodus 15:26 to his people, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, will do that which is right in his sight, will give ear to his commandments. I'm not talking just, God is not just talking about the 10 commandments here. He is also talking about the health commandments. Kaya small letter lang yan. I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians. For I am the Lord that healeth thee. God still rules, brothers and sisters. Ito po, you know, the creator of man, ayon po kay Ellen G. White, has arranged the living machinery of our bodies. Every function is wonderfully and wisely made. God has pledged himself to keep his human machinery in healthful action if the human agent will obey his laws and cooperate with God. Nalulungkot po ako minsan sa mga potlucks natin sa church. Magpe-pray tayo, Dear Jesus, thank you for this food. Make our bodies strong and healthy so that we can serve you more. Pagmulat po natin, chicken joy. Okay? Ano pa ba dyan? Adobong manok or kung ano pang mga bangkay ng mga hayop na hinahain po natin during potluck. Do we expect the Lord na pag kinain po natin yung manok na yon na galing sa fast food restaurant, magiging malunggay sa ating tiyan? Sino po ang linoloko natin, mga kapatid, kapag tayo ay ganito? We pray for one thing and we do the complete opposite of what God has told us to do. Keep our bodies healthy by eating the right type of food. Linoloko lang po natin ang sarili natin pag ganyan po ang ganyan po ang mga practice po natin. Sabi po ni Ellen G. White, every law governing the human machinery is to be considered just as truly divine in origin, in character, and in importance as the word of God. Every careless, inattentive action, any abuse put upon the Lord's wonderful machinery by disregarding specified laws in human habitation is a violation of God's law. I want you to go back very quickly through history to the 1918 H1N1 or Spanish flu pandemic. This ravaged the world as well. It ravaged the US in particular. 100 million people almost had died during that this pandemic in a matter of months. But there are certain institutions in the US. One of them was this college in Hutchinson, Minnesota, that had a 75% infection rate among its students. But listen carefully, here's the thing, no one died. The rest of the US, people were dying of flu, of Spanish flu, but here in the College of Hutchinson, Minnesota, no one died. 75% were infected, zero mortality. Brothers and sisters, na-feature po itong school na to sa news. Sabi po dito, seminary cinches flu. Hutch institution makes a record combating disease. 120 exposed, 90 patients, no deaths. Wala pong namatay. Sabi po dun sa article, no public institution in the state of Minnesota has up to date made a record in handling influenza. The worldwide epidemic that has swept millions into their graves, like that to the credit of Hutchinson Seventh-day Adventist Seminary. Anong meron po sa Adventist Seminary na to? This is a school. This is not a medical institution. It is a school, and yet this school able to save its patients from death. Every person showing indication of sickness was at taking temperature and watching for symptoms of the epidemic. If the patient was there were, but with complete rest and quiet, went a carefully regulated diet and fomentations, water therapy fomentations applied to the throat, chest, and abdomen, As a result of this system of handling a disease that is scoring thousands of victims every day, there has not been one case that could have been called serious or a single death in the seminary, although there were more than 90 persons affected. The record is remarkable. It makes the ordinary methods of dealing with the flu appear irrational. Brothers and sisters, this is a school shining its light to the world. Anong nangyayari sa mga institutions natin? We are putting a bushel over the light that we have. Instead of telling the world we have a solution, we are telling everyone the solution is what the world tells us. This is not the way that we should be doing this. This is not the way we should be telling the gospel. The right arm of the gospel is the health message. We have to focus on these health principles that the Lord has given us to beat this pandemic. And once again, shine on a hill. Be the light shining on the hill. Let us take away that bushel. As the song goes, hide it under a bushel. No, we have to shine, brothers and sisters. Our New Start principles have to shine. Remember, these conditions, these interventions are very cheap. Walang medication kaya zero. Okay, sleep zero, rest zero. Yung fomentations, wala po. That's just water and some heat. And probably apart from the food, healthy choices, wala pong gastos yan. And because of that, 75% of the people infected in Hutchinson completely recovered. Also, I want to show you that there was during the Spanish flu, there were other Adventist institutions also shining their light on the hill. This was the Eastern Canadian Missionary Seminary, now named the Kingsway College. This was located in Oshawa, Ontario. Ano po sabi ng Review and Herald dito? Okay, nearly 50 students were sick with influenza at one time. School began again yesterday. All things are looking bright and better. Practically everyone now is well enough to be at his duties. Even the doctors downtown feel that some unusual power helped us overcome this sickness. We believe that had we not been vegetarians, things would have been worse. Another school, South Lancaster Academy in South Lancaster, Massachusetts, SLA kung tawagin po nila, no? Another school, sabi po ng Review and Herald, the boys and girls in our school dormitories did not escape. While the majority of cases were of a mild type, mild lang yon, yung cases nila ng Spanish flu, some were very serious and if treated by ordinary drug methods would undoubtedly have resulted fatally. Doctors who had patients dying day by day marveled at the fact that in our large and crowded dormitories, walang physical distancing. With practically no professional nurses in attendance, we had no fatalities. For ourselves, we attributed it under God to the fact that we put into operation the methods of treating the sick, which for years have been part of our denominational belief. And they continue, the health officers thank them publicly for their assistance. Kasi ang ginawa po ng school na to, not only did they heal themselves, but they went into the communities to help other people heal as well, practicing the principles that we teach as a church, as a Seventh-day Adventist church, and said that it was largely owing to the efforts of our students that the disease was stayed as quickly as it was. Emmanuel Missionary College, now Andrews University, brothers and sisters, okay? Now Andrews University. Review and Herald also talked about them. The influenza caused our school to close for a little more than 4 weeks. We have had about 50 cases. All of them have made a good recovery, save one. May isa po namatay ngayong Andrews University na ngayon. Generally speaking, at the present time, the health of our students is good. We are planning to have a health campaign in which special instruction regarding healthful living will be given. We feel that it is very important not only that our students value good health, but know how to have it. Ito po ang success ng Adventist denomination. Adventist schools. Anong ginagawa ng Adventist schools natin ngayon? Bakuna. Magtago. Mag-distance. This is the world's way. We have our own way. We have the principles of the New Start given to us 150 years ago. This is what we should be preaching. If we do this, I think we will again be the light on that hill. This means 99.5% success, Adventist school recovery rate, not Adventist health institutions, Adventist school recovery rate from COVID, 99.5% success. Brothers and sisters, sanctify them by through thy truth. Thy word is truth. Instead of pushing people to get vaccinated, I think the Adventist health ministries should be focusing on the true health message, New Start. This issue on vaccines, brothers and sisters, to take or not to take, should be left a decision of the individual, and the church should respect each individual's decision. This issue is literally dividing the church. The Adventist health ministries encouraging vaccination only makes them look more polarized than ever. If we continue to do this, we are going along with the narrative of the world. And what is the narrative of the world? We all know it. Vaccinate, physical distance, face mask. We've heard the narrative over and over again. Romans 12, verse 1 and 2, brothers and sisters. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world. What are we doing? We are conforming to the world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. The health ministries of our church should stop taking sides and simply present the data on both sides. Vaccine injury is real, and no one should not deny it. People have died because of vaccines. I have colleagues and friends who have died because of taking the COVID vaccines. And don't tell me these are coincidences, because these people were completely healthy with no comorbidities po. Wala silang ibang sakit until they took the vaccines. As a physician who swore to first do no harm, I cannot, in my clearest conscience, po, recommend a vaccine that could potentially kill a person or render them permanently disabled. Remember, we are just finding out whether these vaccines are safe or effective. The final studies have not yet been done. Everyone getting vaccinated is part of the vaccine trials, experiments. The conclusions are yet to happen maybe a few years from now. Everyone participating in these vaccine trials is a test subject. Test subject po kayo. Sabi nga ng isang senator, guinea pig. Natawa talaga ako pagsabi niya, but it's guinea pig daw. As a practicing lifestyle medicine physician po, and I thank God for this, all my COVID-19 patients have survived by using the New Start principles, water therapy, and other safe medical and SOP supported therapies. The Adventist Health Ministries po, yung AHM natin, should be neutral on the topic of vaccination. Otherwise, the AHM will be the reason why our church will be divided. I see it firsthand in our churches today, throughout our country. I am sure this is what is also happening around the world. Brothers and sisters, we have a choice. When it comes to vaccination, the choice is yours. When it comes to living a healthy lifestyle, the choice is yours. And I pray that when this choice is presented to you, you will make the correct choice. You will choose to be healthy according to God's principles and help others to do the same, so that we can see more people when Jesus comes the second time. Thank you very much for listening. Madami pa po sasabihin si Doc Oclarit, kaya binilisan ko na po. And sana po na-bless po kayo sa ating presentation this afternoon.
Thank you, Doc Johann. The time is yours, Dr. Oclarit, and welcome po.
How much time do I have? How much time do I have?
We'll have, Doc, we will probably stop at 4:30. Siguro we'll have 30 minutes of question and answer.
Kasi mahaba yung yung kay Dr. Johann, di ko na pero maganda.
Pasensya na po.
In any case, my task this afternoon is to give you a scientific insights as regards to what is really this COVID-19. I will discuss, basically define what is a COVID-19 and what are viruses, and then the manner of infectivity of the viruses. And lastly, I would like to discuss with you the emergency. This is a trial vaccine. So in other words, this is not yet proven to be effective. They have no safety data yet. So therefore, I would like to discuss some of the insights of what these vaccines they are doing at present. So Virology 101. So my brothers and sisters, I would like to inform you that viruses are considered to be non-living. It is the borderline between living and non-living. Why is it that viruses are considered non-living? Kasi ang mga virus, hindi daw yan buhay dahil wala silang cells, wala silang katawan talaga na buhay. As a matter of fact, another definition of the virus is that viruses are considered to be intracellular obligate parasite. Saka na lang sila mabuhay, saka na lang sila mag-multiply kung makapasok sila sa buhay na cell, either plant, animal, human, or bacteria. So, sa madaling sabi, ang viruses ay hindi siya buhay. As a matter of fact, it will only survive few hours outside our human body in the surface of anything, in the soil, in air, in the table, on the floor. It will only survive not more than 8 hours, no? In other words, and viruses are easily destroyed by the ultraviolet light of our sunlight. Ultraviolet light. So ultraviolet light is a very destructive light spectrum that could disarrange and destroy the virus immediately. So why worry about the virus kung hindi pala yan buhay? Madali silang patayin sa sabon, sa mga acid, madali silang patayin sa mga alkali like sunrox or whatever, or NaOCl. Yung mga ganon, mga corrosive material, madaling masira yung virus sa acid at saka alkali. Kaya kung you are practicing mga sanitation sa bahay, sa doorknob ninyo, sa mga sahig ninyo, sa table ninyo, isprehan nyo ng mga antiseptics or disinfectants, madaling masira ang virus. Okay. Madaling masira ang virus sa acid, madaling masira ang virus sa sunrox. So why worry? Isprehan mo lang yung sahig ninyo, patay na yung virus, no? Nasisira kaagad sila. Kasi ang mga virus pala, naked sila. Wala silang protection. Hindi katulad ng human. The human chromosome is protected by 90% introns. And what are introns? Introns are non-coding region of the DNA. Na pag natamaan, walang mangyari sa iyo dahil non-coding siya. Walang protein na nangyari diyan sa mga introns na iyan. So, I would like to classify, there are two types of viruses that exist in this planet. The first type of the virus are called adenoviruses. Adenoviruses are the DNA viruses because viruses are non-living. Why are they called non-living? Because they only have the genetic material. Wala silang katawan, wala silang cells. Mayroon lang silang genetic material, either DNA or RNA. Sa madaling sabi, maklasify lang natin we can classify the what you call this? You can classify the virus into two. Please bigyan mo ako ng kanang bigyan mo ako ng privilege to share the slide. Kasi hindi ako makashare. Hello?
Please
Yes.
help out, please.
Miko, please help.
Please give me the ability to share or to share the slides.
Meron po yan siya, ma'am, na ability. It's co-host po si Doc.
Click na daw, Doc. Click na daw po
Ah?
yung share screen. Pwede na po, pwede na po.
Pwede na? Pwede na? Okay. So, dalawang klase ang virus, mga kapatid. Yung RNA virus at saka DNA virus. Ang tawag ng RNA virus ay retroviruses. Ang example ng mga retroviruses katulad ng AIDS virus. AIDS virus is an RNA virus. Anong ibig sabihin nitong RNA virus? Ibig sabihin na pag nakapasok sila sa pamagitan ng isang receptor protein katulad nitong spike protein, so ang spike protein i-anchor nila doon sa kanilang host and then ipapasok nila yung RNA nila. Pag nakapasok na yung RNA nila doon sa atin, yung RNA nila i-revert nila into DNA kasi sa human cell mayroon tayong tinatawag na reverse transcriptase. Ang reverse transcriptase ay isang uri ng retrotransposons na siyang nare-revert nila yung RNA into DNA. So, yung RNA nagiging DNA at pinapasok nila sa loob ng cell ng infected host at doon pwedeng magtago yung cell, pwedeng magtago yung virus doon habang buhay. So yun ang danger ng mga viruses. Pwede silang, kaya some of the viruses that inflicts cancer, some of the cancer that inflicts human being today are derived from viruses because there are called what called oncogenic viruses. Pag nakapasok sila sa loob ng katawan, pinapasok nila yung material nila doon sa DNA ng host. Kaya nagiging na-inherit natin some of the cancer genes that we inherit are derived from the environment through the viruses. That is why they are using the mRNA virus. So the second type of virus is the DNA virus, in which case the DNA is also inserted into the host and then reside in the DNA, the nuclear DNA of the host, and live there until, and that process is known as lysogenic cycle. So there are two types of infectivity sa virus. Yung tinatawag na lytic cycle. Pag makapasok ang virus doon sa host nila, they will hijack the machinery of the host to multiply all the body parts of the virus. Ang virus kasi, mayroon silang genetic material, tapos nababalot sila sa sinasabi nating protein coat. In the case of the coronavirus, ang protein coat nila ay spike protein. So ang spike protein pala, yun lang ang nagbabalot sa kanang genetic material nila. So pag naka-anchor na yung spike protein doon sa membrane ng host, sa kanan nila pinapapasok yung kanilang material, either RNA or DNA. So yun ang nagiging mechanism ng viral infectivity. So yung lytic cycle, ipasok muna nila yung i-anchor muna nila yung receptor nila doon sa host. Tapos pag nakapasok na, yun ang i-inject nila yung RNA nila. Tapos doon mag-multiply sila, gawa sila ng protein, gawa sila ng katawan, at saka until the host cell will be saturated at yun ang mag-reason na puputok yung cell. Kaya tawag doon lytic cycle. The second type of infectivity is known as the lysogenic infectivity. The lysogenic infectivity is the type of viral infectivity in which the genetic material of the virus is inserted into the nucleus of the host cell of the virus. Pinapasok nila doon at doon na mag-reside yung genetic material. Yun ang masama kasi yun na magiging ma-inherit mo na yun. Kaya sabi ko, some of the cancer genes that is infecting human today are actually derived from the viruses. Okay, now let's move on to the vaccines. The vaccines, the original...
May slides kayo, Doc?
May slide ako. Sandali. Okay.
Kasi yung screen pa hindi namin makita. Please share screen po, Doc.
Okay. Bakit hindi ako makashare? Hindi siya ma-share.
Share screen po. Share
Oh,
screen.
oh,
Sa
share.
baba, Doc.
Pinindot ko na, hindi pa rin ma-share.
Ah,
Bakit hindi ako makashare?
may pwedeng tumulong po, please?
Tulungan niyo ako, bakit hindi ako makashare? Hindi ako allowed. Hindi ako inallow.
Out po kayo, Doc.
Doc, pwede na daw po kasi co-host na po kayo eh. You should be able to share po.
Eh, bakit hindi ako nakaka-share?
After selecting po yung share screen,
Oo nga, pinindot ko na yung aking slide sa share, eh wala pa rin. Ayan.
Ayan, okay na.
Okay.
Okay na.
Yeah.
Okay. Ano talaga ang vaccine? Ang vaccine ay ang tunay na vaccine ay mismong causative agent. So kung sabihin mo COVID vaccine, then ang tunay na vaccine ay ang virus mismo. So it can either be actually there are three major categories of vaccine. The first vaccine is the live attenuated. Buhay siya na virus pero attenuated. Ano ibig sabihin ng attenuated? Ang attenuated meaning pinapahina lang yung virus. Yun ang ini-inject mismo. Yun ang tunay na vaccine. Pero ngayon, ang vaccine na iyon, ang present vaccine na iyon na trial vaccine or experimental vaccine ay hindi siya ganon except for Sinovac. Ang Sinovac, they claim to be the inactivated. The second group of vaccine is known as the inactivated vaccine or dead vaccine or dead virus. A dead virus could be considered a vaccine. And the third type of vaccine is the protein of the vaccine of the virus itself. The protein of the causative agent, be it be virus or bacteria or whatever, no? So I repeat, there are three types of vaccine. The first vaccine is known as the live attenuated. The second type is the dead causative agent. The third is actually the protein of the causative agent. Katulad ng spike protein, that is actually the protein, the balot ng virus. Okay, ang response ganito kasi pag nakapasok na yung bacterium doon sa loob, makikita mo dito sa slide ko, pag makapasok na yung causative agent, sila ay kinakain ng tinatawag natin na macrophages. Ito yung sinasabi ni Dr. Mañez kanina na second line of defense. Pag nakapasok na doon, itong macrophages is actually non-specific. Maski anong klaseng mikrobyo yan, maski bacteria pa yan, maski anong strain pa yan, maski alpha yan, beta or delta, whatever strain it is, maski ano pa yan, kayang-kaya yan kainin ng macrophages kasi non-specific sila. Kaya ang sabi ni Dr. Mañez kanina, why worry when we have a robust immune system mechanism? So this innate immunity comprised by the macrophages. So pag nakapasok na yung virus, whether it be alpha or beta or whatever it is, the macrophage is non-specific. Wala silang pinipili. Pag kinakain na nila yan, nakita mo dyan, pinasok na nila sa bunganga nila, tapos pag nasa loob na, ida-digest nila, tapos after digesting, yung protina na nanggagaling sa virus na iyon, ay gagawa nilang tinatawag na class 2 MHC or Major Histocompatibility Complex. Ipapalabas nila doon sa kanilang surface of their membrane para makilala ng helper T cell. Ang helper T cell therefore will now recognize the protein that is being presented by the macrophage doon sa class 2 MHC. Pag naka-attach na yung helper T cell doon sa macrophage, yung helper T cell ay dadami sila at mag-report sila doon sa ang helper T cell, i-report nila doon sa B cell or the B lymphocytes. Kasi ang gumagawa ng antibody sa ating katawan ay ang mga B cells. So from the macrophages to the helper T cells, from the helper T cells, ipipresent nila doon sa plasma B cell. Gagawa ngayon ang plasma B cell ng antibodies. Nakikita mo dyan, ito yung antibodies. Ngayon, pagkatapos niyan, yung antibody ngayon will direct now all the pathogens. Itatag na nila yung virus, tapos kakainin niya yung tinawag na enhancement, antibody enhancement or antibody enhancement reaction. So yan, itatag na nila yung mga mikrobyo sa antibodies, tapos kakainin na ngayon. This is now the antibody-directed macrophages. Yung kanina, yung tinatawag na non-specific macrophages, yun ang nagpe-present sa T-cell. Yung T-cell nagpe-present sa B-cell. Yung B-cell gumagawa ng antibodies. Pag nakagawa na ang B-cell ng antibody, tapos yung antibody na ngayon, magsi-circulate sa buong katawan natin ngayon. Pag nakikita na nila na yung actual virus, babalutin na ng antibody yon ng virus. Ang virus babalutin ng antibody, tapos itatag na yon para kakainin na naman ng macrophage. Yun ang tawag na antibody-directed phagocytosis. So this is what we call the cell-mediated immunity, which is performed by either the helper T cell will report to the B cell. The B cell will produce the antibodies. The antibodies will direct the macrophages to destroy the infected cell. Kaya ang sabi ko ngayon, itong mga vaccine ngayon na sinasabi na mRNA vaccine, pag nakapasok ang mRNA sa cell, pag nakapasok na ngayon dahil sa ini-inject na sa iyo through the aid of the nanolipid particle, pag nakapasok na yon, the mRNA will now be manufactured into spike protein. And the spike protein will now be protruding into the cell where it was inserted. So most likely, kasi ang nauunang napapasukan ng mRNA vaccine ay ang endothelium ng blood vessel. So pag nakapasok na yung mRNA doon sa endothelium ng blood vessel, gagawa na ngayon ang endothelium ng spike protein. Pag nakagawa na yung ng endothelium ng spike protein, yung protein na nagawa nila, ipapalabas nila sa membrane ng cell na iyon. Ngayon, yung protein na iyon, yung cell na iyon na gumagawa ng protein, ng spike protein, ay aatakihin na siya ng mga macrophages, aatakihin na siya ng T cells, aatakihin na siya ng B cells, tapos sisirain na ngayon. That will cause na what we call inflammatory cascade and causes the destruction of the endothelium, causing the bleeding. Muna siyang mag-cause of bleeding, and then later on, cascade of inflammatory, causing now the clotting mechanisms. That's why you will notice that the many reports have already been said that the mRNA vaccine and the DNA vaccine causes the clotting of the blood vessel because of the attack of the helper T cells, the attack of the cytotoxic T cell on the endothelium of the blood vessels that has been the persons that were injected with the mRNA and the DNA vaccine. Yun ang nangyayari. So kaya ngayon, sa sinasabi ko, itong mRNA at saka DNA vaccine are experimental vaccine, and the sure effect of this vaccine on our body is the destruction of the cell being infected through the attack of the white blood cells, the phagocytic cells, the helper T cells, the B cells, and the cytotoxic T cells, attacking the cells that have already produced the spike proteins. So therefore, it will actually cause the autoimmune attack on the cells that have been infected or the cells that have been introduced with either mRNA or DNA. So yun ang nangyayari doon. Kaya kung ako ang tatanungin ninyo, I do not really subscribe to the experimental vaccine I am calling the government to put a moratorium on the inoculation of this mRNA and DNA vaccine, because it is really totally very, very, very dangerous to all the cells of our body. First, it is very destructive to the brain. It is destructive to the heart. It is destructive to the kidney and the lungs. So the functions, so the real cytotoxic activity of the killer T cells, of course, when the cell becomes infected, it will produce what you call interleukin-1. So the macrophages will produce interleukin-1, and then it will now report to the B cell that the B cell will now produce the antibody. The interleukin-2 is also produced and will now conduit the CD4 cells. The CD4 cells are those cells that are recognized by the helper T cells, and it will now immediately produce what you call the antibodies through the plasma B cell. And the CD8 cells are those that will also invite the cytotoxic T cell to attack the cell that contains the spike protein. So that is the reason why it is dangerous to our body. So I will just backtrack now. I will just fast track this because I don't have much time. So the helper T cells recognizes and report to the B cells, and the B cell will produce the antibodies. And then these antibodies will now direct to destroy the cell producing that protein, because the cell that has been infected or inoculated with the mRNA and DNA will now be producing a foreign protein that is not a resident protein of that cell. It will be construed by the cytotoxic T cell as if it is infected. Because of that, the cytotoxic T cell will now attack the cells producing the spike protein. Ganon ka-dangerous ang mRNA at saka DNA vaccines. So that is it. Makikita mo dyan yung class 1 major histocompatibility protein na re-recognize ng helper T receptor, tapos nagpo-produce sila ng cytotoxic T cell that will now attack the infected cell. So ito ang nangyayari. Yung interleukin-1 para dumami yung helper T cell, tapos yung interleukin-2 para dumami yung cytotoxic T cell, tapos yung interleukin-2 na ito na ngayon ang magtatag ng mga infected cell para sirain yung cell na gumagawa ng spike protein. Ganon ka-dangerous ang mga mRNA at saka DNA vaccine. So MHC class 1 and MHC class 2. Ang MHC class 2 para sa helper T cell, ang MHC class 1 para sa cytotoxic T cell. Yun ay nangyayari lahat doon sa mga cell na nalagyan ng mRNA material. So in closing, I would like to say that I am not endorsing, I am calling for the moratorium on the distribution of the vaccine because it is very, very destructive to the cell because of the cytotoxic attack by the helper T cells and the cytotoxic T cells and the B cells. When in fact there is I would like to advise that there is a natural way. Imagine we have, according to the report, 99.87% have a recovery rate for those people who have been infected with the virus. So why worry, no? 99.8% recovery. So less than 1% or less than 2% ang namamatay. At saka yung sinabi ni Dr. Mañez, yung namamatay sa virus ay dahil mayroon silang ibang sakit. Only 0.8% lang talaga ang reason na namatay sila sa tunay na virus. So, why worry? We should never worry about it because there is a natural way of protecting ourselves. First and foremost, we should take high dose of vitamin D because vitamin D the vitamin D is a prohormone that operates 2,000 genes in our body related to immune response. Kung baga yung vitamin D na iyan, kung may sufficient vitamin D ka, ang vitamin D ay nag-ooperate ng 2,000 genes sa ating katawan related to immune response. So kung mayroon kang vitamin D, robust ang iyong immune system. Very strong yung innate immunity mo and very responsive yung adaptive immunity mo. So once you're infected with the virus and you have recovered, you are now naturally protected because your body has already produced the robust antibodies that is initiated by the presence of the virus during your infective stage. So lots of vitamin D, lots of vitamin C with zinc, and of course ivermectin. And I told you earlier that sunlight can kill viruses. So with sunlight, your vitamin D is activated and it will operate 2,000 genes that will protect you from the infectivity of the virus. So we have God has provided us a robust immune system that would protect us from all the classes of either viruses or bacteria, parasites, or whatever infective agents. So that is what I like has been cited by Dr. Mañez. If you just practice the 8 principles of health in the New Start, you will be naturally producing your own antibodies. It will now improve, or it will now put your innate immunity into a perfect condition that could handle all forms of variants. I would like to say to you that the present vaccine is no longer effective on the new variant because they have already mutated. Therefore, you are not protected by this so-called experimental vaccine because vaccines are specific. Ang vaccine is specific. So yung vaccine na binigay sa iyo, that is only good for the old virus. That is not good. That is not effective for the new variant. Therefore, you can still be infected with the new variant even you can still be infected with the new variant even if you have been vaccinated because vaccines are specific to specific viruses. Because they have mutated, that vaccine that was previously produced will no longer be effective to the present variant. So we have to rely on what God has given us. We have our God has in place on us a perfect immune system that could protect us from all forms of infectivity. All we have to do is just provide us with a high dose of vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and ivermectin. Lo and behold, you will be able to defend your body from the destructive effect of this coronavirus. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Amen.
Thank you, Doc Mañez and Dr. Oclarit. We will be entertaining questions po. Can you please type in your questions and I will be reading them. May isa pong questions. Doc, paano na kung may isa ka ng vaccine? Isang dose ka na ng vaccine from Dread Univar. What will you advise? I got one already.
Kung na-vaccinate ka na, ang worry mo, kung na-vaccinate ka ng first dose, huwag ka na magpadagdag ng second dose. All you have to do is
It's 16 hours.
all you have to do is improve your immune system. Expose yourself to sunlight and then take lots of vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and ivermectin, hoping that it could be reversed because as I told you earlier, vitamin D operates 2,000 genes in our human body related to immune system. So mayroon akong nakitang research article na ang vitamin D daw, nag-ooperate siya ng tinatawag na peroxisome proliferator activated receptor na siyang gumagawa ng antibodies para patayin yung mga virus. So possibility therefore na pag nakakuha ka ng isang pang vaccine, all you need to do is take lots of vitamin D. You can now reverse the effect of that vaccine.
Thank you, Doc. So sa lahat daw po ng mga vaccines today, which vaccine is the safest?
Actually, wala man talagang safe na vaccine. Pero lesser evil ang tinatawag kung totoo ang claim ng Sinovac na inactivated siya o patay na virus, then ang lesser evil is Sinovac. Ang problema lang yung adjuvants. Kasi ang sabi, ang adjuvants daw, isa sa mga adjuvants ng Sinovac is graphene oxide. And graphene oxide is very toxic to the mitochondria. It can kill the mitochondria. And if you kill the mitochondria, you kill the cells also. So sa madaling sabi, walang safe na vaccine talaga. Pero kung sasabihin natin ang tunay na vaccine ng pagkagawa ng vaccine ay ang Sinovac. Yun ang tunay na vaccine. Yung mRNA at DNA, yun ang hindi vaccine yun. Hindi vaccine yun ang tawag doon. Genetic medicine yun ang tawag doon. So, do you have other questions? Meron pa ba?
Meron dito, Doc. What is the difference between differences between vitamin D and vitamin D3?
Actually, mali yung pagkaintindi ng mga tao sa vitamin D na ang vitamin D daw ay nanggagaling sa araw. Walang vitamin D ang araw. Ang gumagawa ng vitamin D ay ang ating katawan. Ang vitamin D is derived from the molecule cholesterol. Ang vitamin D na ginagawa ng katawan natin na original, yung inactivated, yun ang D1. Pag natamaan siya ng araw, nagiging D2. Pag nakapunta na siya sa liver through the action of the simultaneous or synergy action of the parathyroid hormone, nagiging D3 siya. So ang D1 is the inactivated form, ang D2 is deactivated by sunlight, and D3 is already the final form of the active vitamin D. So ang D3 is the D3 is the final active form of vitamin D sa katawan ng tao.
Okay, thank you po. Another one from the Kila family. What is the specific component of ivermectin that helps COVID patients?
Maybe I can help answer that, Doc. I've been part of the ivermectin group internationally. We now know that there is one proven anti-COVID-19 mechanism of action for ivermectin. It literally teflonizes our cells para hindi dumikit yung virus sa ating cells, particularly yung receptors ng
ACE receptors.
ACE receptors. So hindi po dumidikit dun sa receptors dahil po sa ivermectin. And there are other 5 possible mechanisms of action kapag nakapasok na yung virus sa loob ng ating katawan na pwede rin pong i-block ng ivermectin. Remember, has been used for the last 40 years. 4 billion with ivermectin. Pero syempre po, pag sinobrahan rin po natin ang pag-inom at hindi ayon dun sa tamang dosage, ay pwede rin tayong magkaroon ng side effects, just like any other medication. So treat ivermectin as a medication po. It has to be supervised by a physician. It has to be prescribed.
Mayroon akong additional input diyan. Tiningnan ko yung molecular structure ng ivermectin. Ang ivermectin is a competitive inhibitor. Kung baga, pag hindi na makapasok yung spike protein doon sa receptor site ng host cell. So, kung baga, competitive inhibitor of the spike protein. Aside from the fact that ivermectin can effectively dismantle the spike protein, it is also an inhibitor to the spike protein. Yun ang mechanism of action ng ivermectin. It is a very, very safe drug, even safer than penicillin and paracetamol.
Is it natural daw po from EVS? Natural po ba ang ivermectin?
Ivermectin is natural just like penicillin. Ivermectin is produced by a bacterium that was isolated from the soil by that's Japanese scientist. So it is a natural product.
So from ivermectin pa din, no? How does ivermectin help combating COVID when it is medicine for deworming?
Accordingly, the of ivermectin as a deworming, it is a highly corrosive agent. So halogenated siya. So madali siyang sisirain niya yung mga cells ng parasites, kaya namamatay ang parasites. Halogenated kasi siya.
Okay. Everyday po ba mag-take ng ivermectin or kapag meron ka lang pong symptoms from Hasi, Caps, Mats?
Ang suggestion ko po dyan is mag-consult talaga sa physician na nagre-prescribe ng ivermectin para po tama po yung ibigay sa inyo na prescription. Kasi by weight po yan, depende sa... Huwag pong mag-self-medicate.
Ang standard niyan, for persons weighing 70 kilograms below, can take 12 to 15 milligrams on a daily basis up to 10 days for prophylaxis. After 10 days, you may now take 1 capsule with 12 to 15 milligrams with a weight of 70 kilograms and below every 5 days or every 3 days na to protect you from viral infectivity.
And on that point po, mapapansin po natin yung sinabi ni Dr. Oclarit, medyo complicated po yun kasi hindi po lahat ng dosage nila, kaya pinaka-safe pa rin po yung mag-consult po tayo.
Consult talaga. Consult
Yes po,
talaga.
consult talaga para ma-prescribean kayo ng tama. Yun po ang pinakamaganda.
All right. From Indonesia, why is ivermectin not recognized by the government and even the WHO in preventing COVID?
Kasi ayaw nila na may gamot para ma-push nila yung kanilang experimental vaccine. That is the direct answer there. Ayaw nila na may gamot. So anything na may gamot, kukontrahin nila because it is an impediment to their agenda. All roads go to vaccination. That is their aim. All their mechanisms are going to it will lead to vaccine production. Kaya ayaw nila.
Okay. Another question from na blood cleansing using dark green leafy vegetables po can wash out nag-first dose.
Wala namang talagang our body is fearfully and wonderfully made. Ang sabi ko nga vitamin D or even plant extracts can activate our own system to chelate those substances that are unwanted in our body. So sa madaling sabi, binigyan tayo ng Panginoon ng mechanism by which anything foreign in our body is effectively eliminated by our system through the macrophage antibody directed phagocytosis. So yun ang ibig sabihin na pwede sigurong ma-reverse iyan. Sa palagay ko kasi yun nga sabi ko, vitamin D can operate 2,000 genes in our body that will lead to the production of antibodies or proteins that will deactivate all forms of toxic byproducts that will invade our system.
All right. From Marilu Ardesa, Doc Johann, my symptom is severe headache. Does it mean that the virus is making havoc in my brain?
So madami pong signs and symptoms po ng COVID-19. So kung COVID-19 talaga po yung na-experience po ninyo, isa po dyan yung possible po na headache or yung stuffiness po dahil po sa congestion. So yes, possible po na ang COVID virus po ay mag-cause ng headache, fever. Kasama po yan sa mga signs and symptoms po ng COVID-19.
From Eber, are there conditions that we cannot improve the immune system of the person? And the only reason would be to be vaccinated.
Kung bagsak po ang immune system, walang kwenta po yung vaccine. I mean, kung hindi gumagana yung immune system mo, paano masistimulate siya kung with vaccine? So we really have to protect our immune system, keep healthy through the New Start principles po.
As a matter of fact, it is not good to vaccinate a person who is very weak, because
Correct.
by vaccinating, you're introducing the causative agent. By vaccination is the deliberate distribution of the causative agent. So kung very weak yung immune system niya, masama yon, hindi pwede. Hindi pwede talaga.
Okay.
Nagsabi po dito, if all vaccines are dangerous to human body, why did FDA approve them? These vaccines po, yung COVID vaccines, hindi pa po yan FDA approved. Emergency use lang po.
Experimental pa kasi yan.
Oh.
Experimental pa. Wala pa tayong alam kung ano mangyari in the future. Kaya hindi ako mag-recommend.
Doon po sa kiniklaim daw ng efficacy ng iba't ibang vaccine, do you think yung claim nila po ay totoo? Some of them are claiming na 6 months ang efficacy, or 10 months, or 1 year. And for that reason, do they need yung mga fully vaccinated ng booster shots?
Ay, sa madaling sabi, ito ganito yan. Yung vaccine ngayon, wala nang visa yan dahil yan ay design yan sa luma, yung old strain yon. Ibig sabihin, yung vaccine na iyan ay no longer effective for the new variant. Kaya kailangan nila ng another shot, another form, because vaccines